Okay, Jordan, thank you so much for coming to speak with me today. I'm so
pleasure.
excited to have you.
Yeah.
So, before we get into the main interview, I'm going to ask you my quick fire questions.
All right.
Just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Question number 1. What's one thing that sets your soul on fire?
Oh, I mean, the first thing that came to my head was music, but that's such a... I want to say something more ridiculous.
I know. Come on, you got to give it.
Aside from music...
Okay.
Can I say magic mushrooms? No. Magic mushrooms. Okay, no. Leopard print.
Okay. Very good fucking answer. It is right in front of you. Next question. What is the last photo you took on your phone?
Like real shit? Like
yeah,
just,
real shit.
Legit?
Say it.
I don't know. I have to look it up. What
You can't remember?
No, of course
not. And
not.
it can't be a screenshot.
Yeah, no. Oh.
Not something just from the camera roll.
I took a picture of my mate's dog.
What kind of dog?
She's a rescue. I don't know what her breed
Aww.
is. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the next question. What's something that people frequently misunderstand or get wrong about you?
People think I'm stoned.
Okay. That magic mushrooms answer at the beginning.
No, well, magic mushrooms, that's a nice type of stone.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
like, well, all stones, I guess, can be nice. But no, I think I've had comments throughout my career where people have assumed I'm high. Maybe just from my vibe. I don't know why.
Okay. Maybe you're quite calm?
No, I'm not. I can be quite hyper.
Okay.
I don't really understand either.
Next question. Finish the sentence. I'm still a work in progress when it comes to...
Oh, that's like, is that a quick fire question?
Come on.
You need to... I mean, I guess the obvious answer is myself, but I'd want to be more specific.
Okay. Yeah. This is the one
say,
that everyone has like a similar kind of answer to this question.
I'm a work in progress when it comes to, I'd say, organisation and focus.
Okay. Currently? Or is that like an ongoing thing, like forever thing that you're working on?
I think I could improve in this organisational space.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Just flat out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You were one of the first male feminists that I ever met in person, online. I know men that say they're feminists or perhaps have feminist values but don't like to call themselves a feminist. Do you consider yourself a feminist, first of all?
You know what?
Before I just like throw that on you.
No, I did. I think for a long time, I guess I did on the basis that I was in agreement with a lot of feminist values and I was a lot of the feminist literature I'd read, I guess. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of bell hooks, for example. But I was following along some of the conversations around WOW Festival as well with Jude Kelly and Baroness Helen Kennedy, and there's like some really cool people. But I actually think my biggest breakthrough was in realizing that my initial idea around feminism was a deflection from my own bullshit.
Right. Okay. Well, okay. Let's get into that.
Yeah. Well, I just felt like when I was most proudly asserting myself as like a male feminist, I think actually I had a lot of work to do. Okay. And then I feel as though since I've focused more on myself, my own behavioural patterns, and the men around me, right, I guess I wouldn't be so like I appreciate feminism and I understand its need and I understand its benefits for men. But I'm not sure if I would, I don't know if, sometimes I hear feminists say that you can't be a male feminist. I don't know. Right. How do you feel about that?
That's right. Don't throw it back on me. I'm very curious because when I said you were one of the first feminists I met, male feminists that I met, I do mean that thing of where you were speaking out about it. And I find it so interesting that you think when you were loudest, actually, that's when there was some stuff behind that you needed to work on.
Well, no, to be clear, my belief in feminists, in some feminist values, or the kind of, I guess we met at like there's a panel discussing, right?
It was like a sex positive
consent.
event.
Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, so in terms of work like that around consent and like social, values, I guess, or principles.
Like social justice stuff.
Yeah, those kind of things. A lot of the feminist writing I read is dope, and I'll always support that. And that particular panel was amazing, and I thought everyone who spoke was really important. And yet, I like being in those spaces where some men maybe wouldn't go, because I find that I learn a lot, and I have a better understanding of half the world. Okay. You know.
Yeah.
But I think, and I can't remember where I was in my kind of journey, I guess, when I did that panel. But I think what I mean is that I wonder nowadays if focusing on like truly on the development of young men, including myself, if that's actually the greatest thing I could do. Like, so from my own journey of maturation, let's say, helping young men develop, I think that might be
so you've realised
the
that
best feminist
talking to
thing
men
I could
directly
do.
is more beneficial than going to a space where perhaps people already are aware of these values. Or
I think so.
Yeah, because I feel like you have that in with men because you are a man first of all, and there's that they'll look up to you. You're in a position of power, and they'll listen to someone like you. I guess.
Maybe I don't know. This is the thing. Like I think also the other thing with me can like specifically for me is that I generally am more comfortable around women. I was raised by women. There's a lot of women in my family. There were obviously men present too, but like overwhelmingly female. So I've got a lot of female friends and and so I'm incredibly open-minded. So I'm open-minded and curious. So actually, I've had to go on my own journey of relationships with men more than anything in the last few years.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I was guesting on a podcast episode yesterday, and the guy who was interviewing me said something similar. Because I said my experience had been, I found it a lot challenging within female friendships. And he said he'd found his experiences growing up challenging more with men because he needed women to be his refuge from the men growing up. And he needed this safe, accepting space. And he's a gay man. So there was this very outwardly othering of him with the other boys who would be bullied. But he found refuge in women, in female friendship. And he wants to hide from the men as well because there was all of this pressure to be a man a certain way and stuff as well.
Right, the kind of notions of how to be. I mean, I don't really subscribe to those at all. I think I would love there to be changes in how people view what being a man and being a woman. I mean, I think it kind of doesn't make any sense, but it's kind of coded, isn't it? And I guess people want it like being in herds and safe and each to their own. But I think what I meant was, arguably, I think when I saw you, I'd already had some part of the journey, actually. I think that panel, I'd already had some part of my work in terms of kind of therapy, trauma, reading a lot of books. Following a holistic psychologist, which actually did really benefit me. A lot of what she was talking about in terms of self-betrayal, I found really helpful. But what I meant by it is that, when I was a lot younger and, my girlfriend at the time was getting me all up on this feminist shit.
It's normally the way.
Yeah. And I remember going like, God damn, she's right. Do you know what I mean? And then I'd be like, actually. And then I feel like I used to go, that guy's a dick. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That guy's a dick. Yeah, you're wrong. And then I would kind of edge into this space of, I fucking love women. And I would go into that space. I'm like, but that whole time, for example, I think I was emotionally unavailable in an intimate relationship. Okay. So then it's kind of like, how could I have these spiraling, proud opinions where I can't even like keep my girlfriend happy? Yeah,
damn. That's some really good self-reflection. And I thought what you said then about the learning that new information and then so quickly being so quick rather to point it out in other men.
Do you know what
it's
I'm saying?
Such a deflection thing.
Yeah.
I definitely had that when I was learning about anti-racism a few years ago. I was the first person at the dinner table to shut something down, or when it came to transphobia and about pronouns, anyone in my life who didn't understand pronouns, I'd be like, well, that's transphobic. Instead of just teaching them, I'd be like, that's awful, that's awful, that's awful.
Yeah.
And like for me anyway, that was definitely a deflection tactic. It was like I was overcompensating for like not knowing all of this stuff for so long.
Okay,
and then coming out with it in this way that I feel like when you feel guilty about not knowing for something so long, you just want to kind of preach it to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then you can go the other way, and then you can kind of like swing back to your own medium and get your own voice on it.
True. Yeah. Definitely. And I definitely think that before I went on what I consider to be my journey, I think that I also just like the attention I'd get from women. I definitely had to move myself away from purely seeking validation from things I said and from exchanges and interactions with women. That was like a one of these kind of cycles I had to break out of.
Right, okay.
In a way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I think I really was like besotted with kind of all female attention.
Yeah. Can't relate.
Yeah, right. And I think like I just had to sit for a moment and figure out like how I felt about stuff, and also what I needed to change in my life to make more mature decisions, you know, and to have a stable relationship, and to be able to be committed, and
So you're in a stable and healthy relationship?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah.
So how do your feminist, not feminist, whatever you want to call it, values come up in that relationship without sharing anything that you don't want to share? But like, how is it influencing being in a relationship? Because I think a lot of my audience are constantly... Dating is horrible now if you're on dating apps and you're a straight woman. There's just... All of my messages are from women saying, how the fuck do I know if a guy is actually a feminist or if he pretends to be a feminist, to get laid, all of this kind of stuff. So I think people are curious about how it actually looks. And I think you were right at the beginning where you said mostly like the guys who say I'm a feminist are kind of the ones
it can be like that
stick in the sand.
Well, look, so this is the thing, right? So for example, I wrote a thing back in the day on Mother's Day years ago, and it came from an authentic place, and I would write stuff about this. You know, I can't believe on Mother's Day which obviously would be appealing, I guess. But in and around me writing that, I would still have something within me where I would be in an intimate relationship and totally self-destruct. I wouldn't be able to commit. I'd spiral out of control, and it would affect people who I'd love or you know, have shared that, you know, intimate, vulnerable moments with.
So you're saying there can be almost this split between what you do believe, and also the inner experience that you're having.
Well, it's going back to a little bit what we were saying before. It's like, you know, you can say stuff, but like it's words and actions, isn't it?
Yeah.
So nowadays, I'd say how it plays into it is that what I had done in the last few years was really focus on changing what I needed to do in my life to ensure that I was spiritually, mentally healthy.
Right, okay.
And I would still read up on whatever I could read up on, but that was really my main focus. So I would just think about patterns of behavior, exercise, nutrition. I know it's very different for a lot of people, but the first lockdown was incredibly beneficial for me. I had an incredible time. It was in the summer, and I just took care of myself truly for the first time. And I really tapped into actually what I consider to be a more masculine side of me, like a more divine masculine part of me.
And what do you mean by divine masculine?
So I don't know, because this is my own interpretation. I think
you don't have to think,
I know, because like, what the fuck is masculine and femininity? But because if I say it and then be like, oh, what is that, not feminine? I don't know.
Can women not be this too?
Exactly.
Yeah, I get you.
But it just felt like say for example in therapy sessions, in group therapy sessions, there often seems to be a difference in trauma responses between men and women. It doesn't go for everybody, but women, you know, it happens as tears and it's shaking and there's quite, you know, but when it's like sometimes when it's with men, they have to be physically restrained because there's this like, I don't know what it is, like this primal fucking screaming. You're supposed to be like, rah, you know?
But you mean in this therapy treatment, that's what men are doing?
That's what I've seen. Yeah. In terms of group therapy, there might be some. So the reason I'm saying that is in this first lockdown, I felt like I was tapping into letting out this, and I felt like, no, serious, Flo. I mean, like this thing, and then I was like literally writing down, like journaling, what I want, you know, what I felt like I needed to say to myself, you know, affirmations, all that kind of stuff, and then a list of what I wanted from love and my own boundaries. And so when I stepped into this relationship, I knew what I wanted and needed, rather than prior in my life I was in this kind of chaos. Oh, she's attractive, or oh, that's and then it's like, oh yeah, and then you're in these whirlwinds. I swear to God, for this relationship, I was like, listen, I'm aware of everything. I'm watching this thing. I'm feeling this thing. This is what and then like, I really feel as though for me, once I understood what I needed and felt that there was validity to my needs, then I'm able to offer so much more of myself. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not betraying myself every time I kind of go, oh, okay, fine, or you know, or somebody says something to me in a certain way and I just let it slide. You know, it's I really feel boundaries don't have to be aggressive. They can be compassionate and loving, you know?
Yeah, so I call that, the women's version of that is like playing the cool girl.
Right.
Is there a name for men that do that as well? Because I feel like there's this trope that women must always just be cool with everything. Oh yeah, it's fine.
Oh,
but you've obviously experienced that as well. So is there like a guy's version of that?
Where I'm just kind of letting things go?
Because it's the cool guy. I've always promised myself since my last relationship that I'm never going to be the cool girl ever again. I never want to be the girl in me that just kind of goes, maybe they didn't mean it when they said that.
Everybody
maybe
needs
they
I think with relationships, it really comes down to the individual. I think gender becomes, there's so many variables, obviously.
Of course.
You know,
I'm so interested that you've had that experience as well.
Yeah, totally. Of course, because I grew up to believe that I would prioritize another person first.
Yeah.
So that would go into relationships, and that would double back, because when you do something in spite of yourself, I'm just going to say you. When I've done something in spite of myself in the past, but I haven't been clear that I haven't liked that, then I end up building resentment, and then I act out from the resentment, which then damages both people, rather than me just saying from the get go, no, that's not going to run.
I've had to work on that as well.
It's hard.
Yeah, and you end up living this like irritable, resentful kind of state, which just isn't good for you.
Yeah.
So you said you went into your new relationship now, knowing and being aware of all of this stuff that you had done and you're capable of.
I think, listen, I don't know how, I mean, my girlfriend right now, who I love a lot, she's incredibly successful, and I found that incredibly attractive. And she is a force to be reckoned with, totally independent in that regard. And I don't know what the conversations are around traditional whatever setups or values, but I know how I feel, and I think she's brilliant, you know. And I think she's
no, exactly.
And I think like I tell her that as much as I can, and I support her. And you know, for me, it was almost a relief that this person is so, you know, she's stable herself, you know. And actually, most of my interest recently has been around the maturation of young men. I've really been focused on that, because I came to my own realization that if I'm just honest and authentic about my story, then I can empower young men to feel better about themselves. I genuinely believe that so much of this bullshit that happens interpersonally between people, or when men abuse their power or like overextend themselves in certain points, so much of it is based in like such an intense self kind of hatred.
Wow.
You know?
Okay.
And a total lack, or maybe a nice way to say it is a total lack of self-love, self-value, self-worth. And I've sat on a lot of feminist panels. I've spoken to a lot of women, and I hear how it feels to that lived experience feels. But I really do want these men to change. So I'm really trying to find out we all do. How I can communicate that to you.
I think that's a really good place to start, isn't it? What do you see the issue is with men maturing and growing up? Where does it kick in? Where does this happen, do you think? And why is it so pivotal to you? Why is that so important that you want to change and help evolve? Because I've seen a lot of discussions on social media right now where there's like, men don't have enough role models in the media with an alternative version of masculinity, and so they're turning to some quite worrying figures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's an example of what I think is interesting. So the term toxic masculinity.
Yes.
So I used that term. So the reason why I even engaged with feminist panels and whatever else is because I wrote an article for The Guardian years ago about my own relationship with toxic masculinity and how I felt it showed up in my life and men around me, right? Because right back then I identified that term as clearly separate to masculinity. It was toxic masculinity, not masculinity itself. In the years that I followed, not as much has shifted in the usage of that word as I thought it would, from men or women. So I was speaking to a friend who does a lot of stuff with young men, and they were saying they spoke to a professor. It's only a few people, but this professor, she had done this study around young men, and apparently the term toxic masculinity has begun to damage young men's perceptions of themselves, right?
Right, okay.
So just between us, for example, we prefer hypermasculinity now, or hegemonic masculinity, because hegemonic masculinity also includes non-men who support the kind of more toxic ideas of what masculinity is, right? Okay. Which I think happens a lot.
Yeah. So when you're saying, you mean women could also enforce toxic masculinity?
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. 100%. I don't feel we're at the root of it, we're really any separate from any other animal or plant or anything in the world. I don't think we're superior in any sense, right? When you are training, and that sounds so noise makes comparison, but I think it's really real. When you're looking after a dog, a puppy, right? like experienced trainers will tell you that they respond best to positive encouragement, not punishment. Yeah. And the same goes for human beings. If you punish a person for something wrong, they're less likely to change who they are than if you go, that's great.
Yes.
And then so sometimes I hear this discussion and I go like, maybe if young men felt as though there were men that visibly or types of men or things men that were doing that was really appreciated by everybody, then they'd be more inclined to develop into that rather than have to just question the masculinity that they already have. Okay. So that's so I wonder if when developing, men can just feel a sense of empowerment within themselves, of their sexual energy, their sexual worth. I think, you know, the idea that guys like just have this kind of rampant outlook on sex. Sometimes I think like that's your energy. I said it to myself. That's my energy that I'm throwing out, that I'm willing to just exchange with anybody. I think men should have a more grounded idea of their own sexual energy and worth, and yeah, their boundaries, their time, their community with their friendships, whatever else. I think there just should be more of a positive spin on what good things men can do with each other, and what good men have been there as partners, as fathers, as leaders, as whatever.
So do you mean more positive examples of masculinity that aren't about this is wrong, this is right? Or like when you're mentioning like the puppy thing about like the positive reinforcement and stuff. I know that was just an analogy, but I know what you mean, because I think that's a good analogy for anything when it comes to like cancel culture, public shaming. It just doesn't work. In fact, normally the person just ends up doubling down on what they originally did, because now the people cancelling them are the bad guys, because
this is what I think.
It's a suicide risk anytime you do that to someone.
Literally.
So I think that shaming in any way, shape or form is probably bad for people. So when you're talking about this in terms of men maturing, what do you mean?
I definitely don't have like all the answers. I've just done...
Just having a chat.
Yeah. But like, it seems quite universally agreed, especially from, you know, even tribal leaders, like we're talking, you know, who are carrying traditions from thousands of years, you know, that in the Western world, we don't initiate young men. And that's wild. There's no process in which a man feels as though they're letting go of their boyhood. And I think that's why young men, especially given access to power, can take like 30, sometimes 40 years to mature, because we have all the access to deflection, to alcohol, to drugs, to gaming, to, you know, to the intense work, you know, like anything to deflect from the reality that at some point in the early parts of our life we have to feel pain, like real authentic pain, and let that flow through us. Yeah. Right. Because there would be these rituals, you know, historically where boys would have to fight like men dressed as gods, you know. Right. For real, yeah. It had an initiation ceremony. Like that's a real thing.
And what was that supposed to do?
There's some contorted version of it in universities with frat parties and stuff like that, you know, where you like try and drink like 100 fucking kegs or whatever.
Okay.
But like but like highlighting to a young man that there's a boy, that they're becoming a man, and being held by the men around them, the community around them, and pushed through that point. That, I think, men being in a circle is one of the most powerful things I've experienced. Seriously, I did a circle recently with a charity called A Band of Brothers, who work to rehabilitate young men and help men initiate themselves, and older men work through some emotional stuff. I had already done a lot of work, so I was going there because I wanted to see what was going on and catch a vibe. We sat around the circle as men, and then they were talking about like, they were just highlighting moments of grief. Step forward if you've lost somebody, a grandparent did a step forward. And I was just like, everyone was crying.
Yeah. I wonder what also led those people to that place as well, because that sounds so transformative and powerful.
So powerful, man.
Yeah, it sounds so amazing. And I think I've been in spaces like that, which are just for women as well. And I've felt the same amazing thing where you just come to express your pain and feel safe and held. And I think everyone deserves that. Like I've never heard of men doing that. Like the idea almost just kind of sounds so...
That's what I'm saying, because I think the community element, that's actually something that is something that really drew me to a lot of feminism, was the communal element.
Thanks, Jordan. We're going to go into listener questions now. Can you give me a hand answering them?
Yes.
So, question number 1. How can I help a man who is deep in a toxic masculinity spiral. But doesn't even know it? Okay, so let's make up something.
What's a toxic masculinity spiral?
Yeah, I was going to say, what's a toxic masculinity spiral?
I honestly, listen, my general rule of thumb is cut people out.
Right.
Just in terms of not compassionately, not like not horrendously. No, serious, because
no, I know, yeah.
Compassionate boundaries is something I really believe in. Brené Brown talks about it. Over punishment, it makes so much sense. You can leave a person lovingly. Do you get me?
Yeah.
I understand that there are other things that could escalate, but
sometimes you end up enabling people by being with them also.
No, you always do. If they're being problematic. Compassionate boundaries, man, this is my line. And the person crosses the line and goes, okay, it's got...
I told you about the line is, yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
One of the biggest shifts in my life was because a woman left me.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so you're
like,
speaking about it on being the other side of that. That's what enacted change for you, because someone was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, just like, one of the biggest wake ups for me. I think it's for a lot of, anyway, I think, I'd love to speak to more men about this, but for a lot of young men, the wake up is heartbreak. It's like, what the fuck?
Yes.
Like, I don't have control of the situation. Like, this isn't going my way.
Wow. Yes.
And so you're confronted with this shadow ego self where you're like, fuck me, man. That's not cool. That's not supposed to happen. Like, I'm supposed to be able to do everything I want. I'm a man. Do you know what I mean?
And then what happens after that?
For me, I mean, people can go all types of ways.
Of course, for you.
Can get fucked up. I mean, I went the total other way, man. I literally, this is why we know each other. I went into I was lucky enough to be able to afford therapy. I did like double, sometimes triple therapy. I was trying to avoid going on antidepressants. I ran away for a little bit.
Triple therapy as in 3 therapists?
Three times a week.
Oh,
just in intense periods.
Yeah.
I went on an emotional trauma retreat called The Bridge. Shout out Donna Lancaster. I read a lot of books. I listened to a lot of audio books. That was how I dealt with it, because I was so tired of hurting people in a relationship emotionally.
Yes, yeah.
I was so tired that I was like, because it hurts me, fuck's sake. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's when I just had to shift it. But anyway, the point is, in that moment...
Breakups are a great catalyst.
They're the greatest. Actually, I ended up back in that relationship, but like, it doesn't always work like that, months later. But I've seen it all the time. Just say no, and a person's like, right, I've got a choice here. And you better hope the person chooses the right path. And if they don't, then you...
Yeah.
But like, no is so powerful.
Yeah.
And I will always respect her, by the way, that ex-partner of mine for walking away at that moment, because, I should have taken that on. Like in an idealistic world, there would have been an initiation ceremony for me. Okay. When I was way younger.
When you say initiation ceremony, what does that even mean?
I just think that it's all to do with pain.
Okay.
I really think that maturity is inseparable from pain. I don't think you can mature without it.
Okay.
So I'm saying that, look, I've heard it, I've seen this written about before, I've heard it spoken about before. Women's relationship with pain is unbelievable. Like, it is, I can't even get my head around it, how regularly you guys interact with pain.
Okay, and so that accelerates the maturity rate. That's the theory. That's the theory.
Look, they're saying in this book, again, this is just readings that I've said, they're saying that, on paper, grief and heartbreak, women move on from divorce a lot faster than guys. There's all these kind of things coming out because men are these fucking hypersensitive souls that haven't hardened. I don't believe we've hardened. Because the second heartbreak's never as bad as the first.
Yeah, okay.
So you just have to get it done.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think that's why historically there are rituals where you have to go through physical pain.
Okay.
Because you have to break out of this shell, I think.
Okay. I connect really strongly with the message about women. We interact more with pain, therefore we're more mature because we've had to deal with it, blah, 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 blah. And you're saying that because men don't have as much as that typically.
Let's go looking for it.
They have, okay.
Men find pain in unhealthy ways at the moment,
Okay.
Like needless fighting is ridiculous. Like, what is that all about?
Okay.
But like,
so men have to look for pain to mature.
I feel like there's the desire for it is deep unconscious. Yeah, but I think experiencing heartbreak in whatever form, whether that's losing someone you love, like literally, or just in the sense of a relationship, or these moments I really think they shift a soul to another level. And I think avoidance of that is never good. And it doesn't lead to anything.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question.
This is all theory.
I know. Don't worry, mate. Don't worry. Jordan, how can we normalize and encourage men to have therapy? What about that positive reinforcement? Does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah. Positive reinforcement would be amazing to have examples, perpetually, but like continuous examples of men who have gone to therapy or go to therapy and are doing great things. I really do think that makes a difference. Like, let's say with my girlfriend's nephew, he adores Cristiano Ronaldo, you know what I mean? Like, imagine if Ronaldo just turned around and was like, I do therapy twice a week. Yeah. Or like, a kid would probably start trying to do therapy at 9.
Yes.
He'd be like, get me in therapy. He's like, no, you don't understand. It's like, get me in therapy now, you know? Yeah. Like, these people's voice do make a difference. So I think it's probably the responsibility of men in positions of influence to be open about
it's like making vulnerability something cool.
Yeah, man. It's just, it's what I find interesting about the space is it's undeniable. It's not like a debate. It's not a debate of whether it works. I mean, individual therapists might differ, I guess, in technique and suitability. As well, like there's group therapy. But like literally talking about your emotions, naming your emotions, engaging, talking, like that works. There's not, I just want to be clear, that's not up for debate. So it's just whenever, the sooner you can do it, the better. And I hope you find someone who holds your stuff in the right way. That didn't sound right.
Holds your emotions like,
yeah. There's a great documentary Jonah Hill just put up on Netflix called Stutz.
Yeah, my brother told me about it and he watched it. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great example of a great therapist.
Okay, yeah, he recommended it to me. Okay, last question here. What are the hardest things that men have to counteract that come from other men?
Wow. What I find most fascinating about my interactions with men in some spaces is this like total fear of being seen as gay or feminine. Yeah. It honestly, it blows my mind. Like there's like colloquial terms.
It's such a barrier to them having the best fucking life ever.
Yeah. No, I really agree. I do think that. I think there's a lot of repressed sexual energy there, and I think I find it baffling, and I also find it paradoxical because you see a lot of guys. Like, here's an example. If you were like those guys, there's those some men I see discussing, talking at that manosphere space. They'll say that like they'll use the word gay, like how I hear boys saying it when I was in year 9.
Yes.
They'll be like, I'm not doing that, that's gay. Yeah. And I'd be like, wow, okay. Like I honestly thought people would grow out of something like that. But then I find it funny that they all smoke massive cigars. Because I think they're just...
Similar imagery.
I just think they're sucking,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think we're all in the proximity, but everyone's really uncomfortable with it. And I'm just like, there's if you're really secure, then you don't need to say anything. Like if you're secure, like if an idea, this supposed idea of masculine stature, of what they call it, alphaness, if this supposed idea is security and self, then why do you have to prove to the men around you that you're not? Why do you have to remind them that you're not gay, or say something like no homo, or pause, or like these terms? Blows my mind. I think it makes no sense. No. I think it's a total warped. Dare I say mutation? I don't know, of something in Western society, because it was never always like that. No. I think male friendship has historically been, and sometimes there are cultural variations, very tactile, very comforting. I think men are desperately missing that intimacy, that freedom to explore, that not having a fear of coming across. I mean, listen, there's still a deep set misogyny in a lot of us, ingrained within us through news and stories and whatever else. And it benefits no one. That's what's so mad. Maybe other than some rich people, I don't know how it works. But we want to hug our friends. I don't understand the benefit.
I know, I don't understand the benefit either. I guess perhaps it's
the fear of being seen as weak. It's the attachment. It's the weird. I wrote something about this as well. That the idea that femininity and weakness is intertwined is again makes zero sense.
Yeah, well, I guess it's just if a man thinks that he's gay, it's an affront to his strength and what he's been taught a man needs to be. So that's like the worst thing you can insult a man to be is gay.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I always think there's just an undercurrent there, man. Like I've always found it fascinating that when guys get angry with each other, they'll shout "suck my dick" at each other.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I think like maybe you should just suck each other's dick.
Okay, let's end the episode. Okay, thank you so much, Jordan. I really am just going to end it there. Yeah, I love that. Wow, my first conversation with a straight man on Exactly. I really love what Jordan preaches on his Instagram over the years. I love his message. I definitely feel like I needed a man to discuss all of this stuff, particularly when it comes to toxic masculinity. I typically don't spend a lot of time reading a lot of literature about men maturing or what men need, because I feel like that's definitely a conversation that men should be having with other men, because women do way too much of it in our everyday lives when it comes to our romantic partners. It's what we pick up when we're younger. One of my old slogans from my Instagram was "Stop raising him, he's not your son." And I feel like what Jordan said there about women maturing at such a rapid rate, faster than men, is so fucking true, because we're constantly interacting with pain on a day-to-day basis. I think that what Jordan said about helping young men mature and kind of changing the way that they think and interact with the world from a young age is probably the most important thing that men can be doing for other men to make sure that they don't grow up to enact patriarchy in their lives and harm the people around them. He's actually just written his debut children's book, and it's called The Missing Piece. You can get it at Waterstones, Amazon, wherever. Be sure to check it out. You can also follow Jordan on Instagram at Jordan F. Stevens. Thank you so much for listening this week. I hope it gave you lots to think about.